Hey guys, have you ever thought about the possibility of getting a 9 in the IELTS speaking test? Do you think you can do that? Or what does it mean when someone gets a 9? My name is Erfan and I'm going to share with you my experience of getting a 9. So stick with us. Well, getting a 9 in IELTS does not mean that you know everything about the language. Because even we as native speakers of Persian language, we do not know a lot of linguistic subcategories of the language. Who can claim that they know everything, such as all the phrasal verbs, all the collocations, all the adjectives, nouns, verbs, everything about one language? Therefore, when someone gets a 9 in IELTS, it does not mean that they know everything about the language. Of course, it shows that they have a very good command of language and they are expert users of that language, which is in this case English. But it does not mean that they are super knowledgeable about that language. Now let's see how IELTS has defined band score 9. Well, there are 4 main criteria based on which your speaking performance is assessed. Namely, fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and your pronunciation. And you should remember that even in IELTS band score 9, even in the speaking band descriptors, there's nothing about knowing everything about the language. Therefore, it is not rocket science. Now, there's something very important you gotta pay attention to, and that is the difference between IELTS tests and a lot of other tests, especially the ones that we took at school. Now, in a lot of other tests, we used to study a lot of materials, and based on those materials, a test was designed, and then we had to take the test. But in IELTS, we have to choose the material based on the criteria based on which our speaking is assessed. Those criteria, as I mentioned before, or not.
It was less than a minute ago.
There are 4 of them. There's fluency and coherence, grammatical range and accuracy, lexical resource, and pronunciation. Now I want to briefly talk about each of them. In fluency and coherence, in band score 9, you have to pay attention that it is very important to develop all the topics coherently in order to talk about all the aspects of the question. And you have to try to use discourse markers and connectives and all the connectives or cohesive features as naturally as possible. Apart from that, you have to try to
spit it out.
Have short pauses. Try not to think about what you're going to say, okay? I mean, it's going to be a little difficult probably, but it is very important for you to try to reduce all the hesitations and all the long pauses and everything which can affect your fluency negatively. Now about the lexical resource, which is like 1/4 of your, which let's say entails or comprises
daily dose of perfectionism.
1/4 of your speaking score. You have to try to think about the less common vocabulary. You have to try to use idiomatic expressions, especially less common idiomatic expressions, and you have to try to use them naturally and accurately. Precision is very important in your lexical resource, and you have to try to show that you know a lot of vocabulary which are related to the topics which are being asked. Therefore, my very quick advice right now would be try to learn vocabulary thematically.
If you haven't watched this previous video yet, definitely check it out because it gives you a better understanding of what thematic vocab learning is.
And about the 3rd criteria, which is grammatical range and accuracy, you have to pay attention to a lot of different, or let's say a variety of grammatical structures, and you have to try to think about error-free sentences. It is very important to produce as many error-free sentences as possible, which means you can't make a lot of, you can't have a lot of errors or make a lot of mistakes. And about the 4th criterion, which is your pronunciation, and a lot of people tell me that pronunciation is that important? Well, according to British Council website, it is 1/4 of your score. Therefore, you have to pay attention to it as much as you pay attention to the other 3 criteria. So about pronunciation, there are a lot of things we can talk about. We will talk about them in the future episodes. And very briefly, I just want to tell you that for us, consonant clusters, sentence stress, word stress, and linked sounds are very important. So their importance, the 4 band descriptors importance make them the rules of the game. And if you want to get a 9, you have to try to play accordingly. And I'm going to give you some tips based on those band descriptors, based on 9 band descriptors. And you have no choice but to conform if you want to get a 9. Now, about the tips. Our point of departure is fluency and coherence. And according to IELTS speaking band descriptors, your fluency and coherence, band score 9 says the candidate develops topics fully and appropriately. This means you have to pay close attention to all the different aspects of the topic which is being asked. So you have to try to think about the different dimensions of the topic. You have to consider all the aspects, and you have to try to show that you're willing to answer in lengthy sentences, which means if you are a type of person who prefers to speak very shortly and sweetly, then you have to reconsider your answers. Because in IELTS, you have to try to give the examiner the chance to assess you and your, not assess you, but your answers. So one of the problems actually we have with the candidates who try to get the best band score possible in fluency and coherence is that they do not have a lot of ideas. So there are a lot of things you can do. There are a lot of practices that can be helpful. For example, one of the practices is you can look at the question or the topic in different aspects. That means you can, for example, start with this issue can be looked at from different angles, from 2 different angles, for example, or 3 or more. So you can think about all the possible, let's say, perspectives about that specific question. Now, for example, imagine the examiner has asked you, how has technology affected our lives? Well, you can say a short and sweet answer would be, well, technology has affected our lives positively. It is a logical answer, and I agree with that. However, there are a lot of different aspects you can think about when you're talking about technology. For example, the relation between technology and economy, or the effect of technology on our future, or how technology has affected our interactions, for example. So it is better for you to think about a lot of different aspects of the topic and try to fully develop the topic in order to get a better score, in order to get the highest score, because this is what is said in band score 9 in fluency and coherence. Now, the next tip is ideas. So if I want to put it in one sentence, you have to try to already know your answers before you step in the speaking room. This means you should not panic when you're asked the question. Sometimes they ask you, this is a very recurrent theme, that they ask you questions regarding your preferences. For example, the piece of technology, or food, friends, teachers, restaurants, and there are let's say a limited number of questions that can be asked about your preferences. So you should already think about what you want to answer to that question, and this is not a very difficult process. For example, if you're asked about your favorite food, for instance, my favorite food is korma sabzi, which is not, but...
Excuse me, but how dare you?
Imagine my favorite food is korma sabzi, and you have to try to know how to answer, how to talk about korma sabzi. Do you know how you can make it, or do you know what the ingredients are? If you don't know, there are 2 options for you. You should either learn how to talk about korma sabzi and all the ingredients and how to cook it, or you should just talk about something else, which is maybe your not #1 favorite food, okay? So the same goes with the people around you, family members, for example, means of transportation, means of communication, and the things about which question of preference can be asked. The next tips are about pronunciation. And based on my personal and vicarious experience, the score you get in pronunciation is usually the same, either the same or one band score more or less than the score you get in fluency and coherence. And that is because of the interconnectedness of pronunciation and fluency and coherence, and specifically because of the linked sounds. Now, tip number 4 is about sentence stress and putting the stress of the sentence on a word in order to convey the precise meaning. So I'm going to give you a sentence which contains 7 words, and I want to put the stress on different words in order to give different meanings. Imagine the sentence, I didn't say he stole the money. I didn't say he stole the money. Someone else said he stole the money. I didn't say he stole the money. That's totally wrong. I deny it. I didn't say he stole the money. I wrote or I texted he stole the money. I didn't say he stole the money. I said another guy stole the money. I didn't say he stole the money. I said he just borrowed it. I didn't say he stole the money. I meant another particular amount of money. And I didn't say he stole the money. I said he stole the car. So as you can see, if you put the stress of the sentence on different words, you can get different meanings. Therefore, you need to pay close attention to what word in a sentence gets the main stress. Now, the next tip number 5, is consonant clusters. Consonant clusters are particularly important for us native speakers of Persian because we don't have a particular pattern of pronunciation in our language which exists in English, and that is, like I said, consonant clusters. Now, in Farsi, either the first or the second sound, I repeat, the sounds, not the letters, of the beginning of the words, either the first or the second needs to be a vowel. That means it's either VC or CV, but that doesn't happen in English because in English they have something which is called consonant clusters, which means at the beginning of the words you can have 2 consonants or 3 consonants sometimes. Words like black, street, speak, and the like are following the same pattern. Therefore, if you try to pronounce it with the pattern which we have in Farsi, you need to add an E or an A or an E either at the beginning of the word or after the first consonant in order to be pronounceable for you. Therefore, this happens a lot for the native speakers of Farsi, and I want you to be aware of this fact. Because if you pronounce them in a wrong way, you are changing the pronunciation pattern of a word, which means you're pronouncing wrongly. So, words like black, not black, cloud, not cloud, clear, not clear, or street, not a street, speak, not a speak. So these are some words. Of course, there are a lot of them, but these are some of them that you can think about. Alright, I hope you found this video useful. Of course, we're going to cover a lot of other tips in our upcoming video, so do not miss them. Bye bye!
خانه آیلتس آفرینش، تنها مرکز تخصصی دوره‌های آیلتس در ایران. www.afarinesh.org